many people who care about developing themselves spiritually and developing their spiritual lives and making progress in that regard are often also people who are interested in helping other people. Some people believe that the purpose of life is to help other people, which might be the purpose for some people. It might be part of the purpose for some people, although it's likely that the purpose of any one life is for the person who's living that life. How do we reconcile these things? How do we make our own path and our own spiritual growth compatible with what we do for others, what we wish for others, indeed, if we do and wish for others? I mean, often it's religion that tells us that being good to other people is important, but we don't need religion to know that. Our own experience shows that. Most importantly, there is a practice that we can do every day that develops us personally, both at a spiritual and a psychological level, and has the effect of impacting other people very powerfully, often being helpful to other people, and perhaps even affecting their spiritual growth. And the good news is that such spiritual practice is really easy. It involves no special knowledge. It involves no special technique. It doesn't even involve practicing in order to get it right. It just is doing. It is what the Dalai Lama called his very religion, his very simple religion. Dalai Lama said, "My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness." Kindness is the practice that I'm referring to. Kindness is something we can practice towards other people and indeed towards ourselves and demonstrate a very, very powerful effect in our world. And it is easy. I mean, like many things, sometimes it's easier said than done. And the way that life challenges us, presses our buttons, and sometimes makes it the least likely thing that we're going to do in a challenging situation. And yet it remains the easiest spiritual practice to do. The thing about kindness is that it takes no special ability or being a special person, and nor does the receiver have to be some special person in some special situation. Indeed, Mark Twain said, kindness is a language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. And if you think about that, that is true. Kindness is a language because it is a form of communication. It is a way of interacting with other human beings that communicates something to them. Even a stranger, even a person who might be limited in some way, such as deafness, for example, as Mark Twain said, is able to receive and understand, and we can even communicate with complete strangers through acts of kindness when we don't speak the language or have anything else in common whatsoever. When something is like that, it must be so fundamental. In fact, kindness must be so fundamental. We often think that human beings by nature are competitive, aggressive. We are like many other animals on this planet. And especially in the world today, which is so full of hatred and anger and people doing things to each other all the time, it seems that there's no hope for something like kindness. It is interesting, though, to bear in mind that Darwin, who was one of the great instigators, developers of the theory of evolution, and he was just one of them, he didn't really see humankind as being biologically competitive and self-interested. Often people assume that he did, and survival of the fittest and all of those ideas seem to suggest that that must have been the case. But he believed that we are a profoundly social and caring species, and he argued that sympathy and caring for others is instinctual. So I think what's important about Darwin's idea there is clear that kindness is not contrary to how we develop and grow as a species. And if evolution is correct about survival of the fittest as the way that we get there, the important thing is that it doesn't exclude kindness. I mean, the great author Henry James said, there are only three things that are important in human life. The first is to be kind. The second is to be kind. And the third is to be kind. And it might come across as really hitting the point home a little bit unnecessarily tactlessly for such a gracious writer, but it really needs the point to be stated that that's all you really need to do, because the act of kindness transforms your life and might actually affect everything else that you do. Seneca, one of the great Stoics, said, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. And Marcus, a couple of hundred years later, Marcus Aurelius, our favorite Stoic, took it one step further. Marcus himself did have religious inclinations, but he was a Stoic, and he said, human beings have come into the world for the sake of one another. So either instruct them or be patient with them. Instruct them means help them, share with them what they should know in order to be better, or endure that they are who they are, that they can't be whatever you might want them to be. Because that's also one of the things that stands in the way of kindness, is that we have a fondness for telling each other what to do, and when we're wrong, more often than when we're right. And so that means that we need to be a little bit more patient. Sometimes silence can be the source of your kindness, when you say nothing in a situation where your instinct seems to be to want to criticize or correct someone. Correcting might sometimes seem like kindness, but even then, we need to think to ourselves and really think, maybe if I say nothing, then that person will still feel more comfortable. Marcus also said, if you can, show them the error of their ways. But if you can't, remember that kindness was granted to you for this purpose. The gods themselves are kind to such people and even help them to achieve external things, such as health, wealth, and reputation. That's how kind the gods are. You are capable of the same kindness if you want. So he says, if you want to be like the gods, choose kindness. It's interesting. Again, he doesn't see them as punishing figures, but he has the idea that we are trying to uplift ourselves. The gods, as he says, are trying to make life possible and easy for us. And whatever you might believe about all Roman gods, the point that he's really making is that we can make life possible for each other. We can show each other and do each other and provide for each other in simple, small ways. I mean, sometimes the tiniest little bit of serendipity or synchronicity, the tiniest little sign, makes us believe in hope. Well, that means kindness only has to be tiny. You don't have to do something enormous for someone. The tiniest little kindness can really make a difference to someone. Science has even demonstrated that when we give resources to others, and rather than wanting more and more for ourselves, a sense of permanent well-being tends to emerge. We feel better giving stuff to others than keeping it for ourselves. And in fact, kindness has been shown to be the most important predictor of satisfaction and stability in marriage. Marriage has a lot of demands and requirements and things that have to happen in order to succeed. But the most consistent and the most effective is kindness. Kindness to people you love. Kindness affects the person who does it and the person who receives it. And both receive a lasting impression. And in a marriage, if your impression of each other is as a kind person, you're always going to want to put that person first and that marriage first. And that can provide the space for the marriage to grow. But even though both parties benefit from kindness. It is the one who gives kindness who is influenced much more than the receiver of it. And again, research shows that enhanced mental well-being, emotional well-being, and physical well-being follow from kindness. And kindness requires no work. In fact, kindness might even originate from the simple act of just not doing harm. Don't harm other people. Don't judge other people, however much you might want to do so. So we need to hold on to that kindness, even in a challenging situation, by asking ourselves the question, what did they mean to do? We often want to judge or correct or criticize because of something someone did that we think shouldn't have been done or should have been done another way. But rather than looking at that, if we turn it around to the motive and say, what did they mean to do? In the vast majority of situations, someone is trying to do good or the right thing or something positive. And even when someone criticizes us or hurts us, we can ask ourselves, why did they feel the need to hurt us? The only answer could be that they are in pain. An animal lashes out when it's in pain and when it's in fear and when it's threatened, not usually at other times. And actually, we are the same. So if someone is coming at you with anger, with aggression, with any of those kind of things, and again, especially in a relationship, as a way of understanding how kindness worked in the relationship, we can ask ourselves, what is the pain they carry? What is the fear they carry? They can only be being this way because they are not well. And if they are not well, we don't have to hurt them back even more and make them even more not well and more hurt. So just changing our way of thinking about why people behave the way that they do. People often don't behave kindlessly because of a kind of need for almost revenge, not wanting to allow other people to get away with hurting them or saying a particular something or thinking they're right when we know they're wrong. We don't want to let them get away as if we're some kind of a judge and jury. But if we realize they're being this way because they are hurt, they're being this way because they are fearful, then we can understand how it can only be worse if we hurt them more by saying, doing, whatever. And in fact, if we do a little bit of kindness, it might actually completely transform them. We might alleviate their pain and shift them, and we might hear them saying sorry when we didn't even ask them to. We didn't have to do the correcting or the judging. Just by being kind, a person can realize sometimes I don't have to be this way. It is true that some people will define kindness as self-serving. And so saying that it's an attempt to control the other person or make another person feel indebted to ourselves. And of course, maybe one of the most important ways to be kind is kind of in a semi-anonymous way. But most importantly, whatever it is, making it very clear that we don't need any kind of a payback and not acting in a way that we expect anything in return, because then it isn't kindness. But still, we also need to be kind to ourselves. We need to be kind to ourselves when we do something wrong. It happens to everyone. So punishing ourselves, criticizing ourselves, all of those kind of things are related to the very same things we saw with other people. It's frustration, it's anger, it's disappointment, it's pain, it's fear. So when we direct those negative emotions at ourselves, it's worth a little self-analysis in the simplest way, saying, I must be in pain, I must be in fear. What is it? And instead of having to fix it, which we can do, we can go to therapy, work on ourselves, do whatever we like to fix it. But the first thing we can do, without having to even go yet on that road, is be kind to ourselves. Kindness to ourselves is just as effective as kindness to other people. It can make us feel optimism, hope. It can motivate us to act. It can motivate us to finish things, kindness and self-forgiveness are very important in that regard. And appreciating ourselves when we suffer, realizing when we notice other people suffering, that it's the same as when we are feeling miserable in some way. And small things can change everything. A smile, saying something small and kind, giving a little compliment, even where it was really not necessary, opening a door, helping someone with picking up a parcel and carrying it. All of those little acts of kindness can make the hugest difference because they make a little okay for someone. And we all know someone who's just amazing at always sending a thank you email, and always telling someone how great they look, or always taking food to the person who needs it. There's people who have that built in. And it's those little acts that we can all do. Anyone can send a thank you email. Anyone can send an unnecessary thank you email. Everyone can just turn around and walk back and say thank you to a person who was perhaps a security guard at a door, who was just watching everyone come, go, and just checking. All those tiny little things make a very big difference to the person receiving it. And then there's the recognition of other people's success, and in fact, the celebration of the successes of others. When we fully, wholeheartedly celebrate someone else and celebrate their successes, it's been shown that your response to someone else's successes might determine more about your relationship than your response to their difficulties. So it's interesting, like when you're in a relationship, how you deal with your partner when they're in need, and be there for them, support them, do all of those kind of things, which we know we all should do and hopefully all do. But that's great. But look at yourself when your partner is being successful, when something amazing happens for them. Do you maybe minimize the success, maybe not pay attention to it, or maybe bring up some of the problems? Yes, but when we are openly happy for the other person, when we embrace it fully, as much and as obviously as it seems to be, my job is to support you, so here's me, it might not even be authentic. It is authentic, because kindness makes kindness, and happiness makes happiness. And when your partner is happy and you get happy for them, you both end up being much more happy than when you started. So kindness works the same way. Kindness grows and it influences other people, and it spreads. It's viral. It really does spread like a virus. When we start being more and more kind, we start seeing opportunities to be kind coming up everywhere, because they can be so small. And when we start pursuing that, we start inspiring other people to be kind as well. And it just seems like people realize for themselves, when they see the reaction, when they see how light you are after you've been kind in such a small way, they often might do the same thing. And besides, if you're kind to a homeless person, a person who might be begging or whatever, the person behind you, in the car behind you, is more likely to do it. You can watch when people are begging at a street. If one person gives them something, there's at least one other person is going to do it almost immediately, because kindness inspires kindness and makes you realize it costs nothing and it always comes back. There's a recent study that had a look at how people feel after being kind or witnessing kindness in others, and how people feel after 7 days of performing kindness. And in the study, participants were essentially randomly assigned to carry out at least one act of kindness more than usual for someone close to them, or a stranger, or themselves, or just be an observer. And levels of happiness through questionnaires are measured. And the researchers found that being kind to ourselves or someone else, or observing kindness, all boost happiness. Happiness is so elusive. People are always looking for happiness. And It's right there under our noses. We don't need something. We don't need anything. We can actually generate happiness through acts of kindness. That is an important concept. We can generate our own happiness through acts of kindness. Random acts of kindness and paying it forward are also easy, kind of fun ones to do. If random acts of kindness don't come easily to you, then maybe just try and find a way to do one small thing each day for someone and notice the impact on yourself. And you'll notice that it becomes easier the more that you do it. And the more that you do it, the more opportunities you will notice. And then you will find it much more easy to do random acts of kindness. Pick on a stranger, or you see something, just go for it. Unnecessary kindness. You're standing behind someone in the queue who's struggling for their change. Just lean forward, put down, $20 note, and go to the next cashier. Don't get involved. Don't ask for thanks. Don't do any of those things. It's the kindness itself that produces the reward, not the gratitude you receive back from people. It's irrelevant whether they show you gratitude. All you want is that they feel lighter. And if they show you gratitude for that, bonus. But you're spreading the kindness. It's so important to understand you don't need the gratitude. You're benefiting, you're getting the gratitude from yourself. So the little things we can do, we can learn to ask if someone needs help. Easy thing to do. Hopefully we're all taught to do that. Best thing to do is imagining yourself in their shoes. Every time you want to judge, every time you want to criticize, every time you're receiving pain, anger, aggression from someone else, put yourself in their shoes. In the case, as I said, of pain and aggression, ask why. But in a person suffering, ask yourself, how would it feel to receive that cold stare, that person walking around them because they're a homeless person, they don't want to go too close? How would it be like to be on the receiving end of? And if you put yourself on the receiving end and feel, obviously it must feel horrible, people just avoid you, then ask yourself, how would it feel to receive kindness? Better, even bigger way to kind of really grow your kindness and push yourself is being kind to someone no matter what, by forgiving them no matter what. Forgiveness is a topic all of its own. It's big. But forgiving someone else no matter what is probably the greatest act of kindness you can achieve. Similarly, being kind to someone you don't like, being kind to a bully, meeting bullying with kindness. Those are things you can practice, that you can teach to your loved ones, but you can break down their kindness. And most importantly, you can perhaps effect a permanent change in people who are inclined to bully, because they might ask themselves, why did I do that? Why am I doing that? Or maybe just feel a tiny bit guilty for what they did. But even if they didn't, it doesn't matter. You're not looking for a reward from them. Your reward isn't that they change or they're better. Your reward is that you grow, your heart grows, you become lighter, you become kinder. You are growing yourself. So pay it forward. And then, of course, don't neglect the ones you love. Those are the ones we tend to neglect the most. Be kind to a person close to you, a parent, a spouse, the people we easily neglect. Catch yourself. Be more kind. Smile at strangers. And perhaps one of the challenging ones for many people is being kind to a stranger in your car. Isn't it funny how in a car, aggression seems to be so just below the surface? We defend ourselves. Perhaps having a hooter is not a great idea because it allows us that outlet. But people do tend to become more aggressive in cars, as we know, and turn that around. Make sure you stop or slow down to let someone in. And letting someone in is a great act of kindness for which you might get no response. You might not even see that person very clearly when you're letting them in a car. But little things like that doesn't change how fast you get to your destination, but changes how fast you get to your ultimate destination, which is your own growth, your own spiritual peace and harmony, your own sense of meaning in the world. It might be hard to find meaning in books and in deep spiritual things, but you can find meaning out there in the world every day through simple acts.